Welcome to the Rich Dad Real Estate Show, where we talk about the good news and bad news of real estate, hosted by yours truly, Jaren Sustar. Guys, go down to the show notes and grab my free ebook, How to Buy Your First Investment Property. It's going to walk you through all the steps because 2025 is going to be a huge year for real estate. You need to know how to go capitalize and add assets to your portfolio so you can escape the rat race and achieve financial freedom through the greatest asset of all time, real estate. So today, I am super excited to have our special guest, Serena Norris, on the show. Serena's been investing for almost a decade now, maybe right at a decade. She's been a part of thousands of flips, very involved in the Limitless conference, which I know a lot of the listeners will be familiar with. And I call you like the systems queen. I don't know if you've branded yourself another name, but you are unbelievable at putting systems together so that organizations can operate more efficiently. Serena, thanks for being on the show. I'm super excited to chat with you.
Hey, Jaren. Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be on the show.
All right, so I want to go back to real estate first because I want to talk about systems because I believe that that's super important, not only for people in a real estate business, but for any business in general. But how in the world did you find yourself into flipping thousands of houses, almost like, I don't want to say out of nowhere, but I feel like it wasn't on the radar. And then all of a sudden, here you are, you guys are crushing so many deals all over the place.
Well, where do I start? I mean, I definitely didn't come out of high school and been like, I want to do real estate, right? There was always a journey to get here. So I actually went to college for graphic design and marketing, and I did that for a few years and loved most of it, was pretty successful at it, had a pretty high level job with it. But I just realized I got that feeling like most people feel where I wanted more control over my life. I wanted more for it. I wanted to be able to lead. And I knew I didn't want to do freelance graphic design because I was just trading my time for money and I wanted to figure out how to leverage that and I didn't know what to do. So I actually saved up enough money to quit my full-time job. And then I moved to Hawaii for a little bit and was like a beach bum and bartender and figured it out. And I actually, someone handed me Rich Dad, Poor Dad to read. And like a lot of people that are probably listening to this show, a light bulb went off in my head. I mean, I was literally at the laundromat, drying my clothes, and it all clicked into my head how much real estate's been a part of my life since I was little. And that would be the vehicle that I could get to where I was going and the goals I wanted to achieve. So at that point, I actually didn't know anyone in real estate at the time, even though my dad, my grandpa, my stepdad, they were all contractors, but they are either out of the business or had passed away. And so, and I didn't even know a realtor at that point. So I was like, I guess I'll get my license online and see where that goes. And at that point, I kind of wanted to move back home to Washington, but homesick. I'd been gone for 6 years. And I moved back. And within 2 days, that is when I met my mentor at my cousin's wedding. And so kind of the stars all aligned. I don't, call it manifestation or what, but I was like gung-ho that I was going to flip houses. Eventually I wanted to own rentals and kind of see where that would take me. And I kind of put it out in the universe and that person showed up. And we ended up doing a bunch of deals together. I mean, I started off as his assistant, just making $15 an hour. And then over the course of a decade, moving up to just being completely sole, operations for him, and taking down all of the rehab, analyzing deals, the systems, and then we've moved on to so many other ventures from there too. So it's really definitely cool. Baby steps and stepping stones to get where they're. Yeah.
Well, first off, I'm a little jealous. You got to be a beach bum in Hawaii. I mean, I understand at the time you were ready for more after you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but being a bum in Hawaii sounds like a pretty good gig, at least for a short period of time. I think we all need to go through those phases of life where we're like, you know what, we're relaxing, living the dream, and then we need the good kick in the rear, which I think it's crazy to me how the book Rich Dad Poor Dad does that. And I get the opportunity to interview people every single week, and everybody's read it. And everybody's been impacted significantly by it. And I believe it does a lot of things, but it just spells out very simply, if you do this, you will get this. Reduce liabilities, add assets, start, buy businesses, and you're going to have success over time. And there's just enough people who are crazy enough to go and make it happen. And they are proof that, hey, these principles work. I think it's really neat too, how you make this decision. You read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you make this decision, you know what, I want more for my life. I want to be in control. And then all of a sudden, you find somebody who's your mentor and allows you to get into the real estate game and really, really learn it. It's almost like when you buy a car. Not really. This may be a terrible analogy, but forgive me. But you go and you buy like a red Ford F-150. Well, then all of a sudden, what do you start seeing on the road? It's like, dude, I didn't realize everybody drives Ford F-150s, red Ford F-150s. The same thing's true when you decide something for your life. You're like, okay, I want to go and make this thing happen. And you start telling people about it and you start making it known. You start doing things that can lead you to be in situations where you're around people who are already where you want to go. Now, yours didn't happen organically at a meetup like you would think. You think you would have found your mentor at a real estate meetup, but you were already out pursuing more for yourself. And when you do that, it's interesting, like you mentioned, how the stars kind of align and end up helping you get to where you want to go. And then you guys, I know your story, you absolutely crushed it from there.
Yeah. And I want to back up a little bit because a part of my story I didn't mention is, so when I had that opportunity where I'm meeting this person that's like, I flip houses right in front of me. And I'd never met anyone that flipped houses. And all of a sudden, 2 days after I moved back, they're at my cousin's wedding in front of me. I had that experience a couple of years earlier where you have to just go out and get what you want. Unfortunately, when I was 18, and 19, I had a few really close people that passed away in my life unexpectedly. And that was when things started taking a turn, especially at a young age where, I went through a really hard time, but then it started going, I kind of looked at life we have now created life of how it's supposed to be through our conditioning and what is expected of me and go to college and get this job. And I'm like, I just started kind of looking at things differently and started kind of, taking a different perspective, like a bigger picture perspective. And that is when I really started to, I would say, live, because of these people that passed away, I really started living. And so when I was 19, I started learning to play guitar. I'd always wanted to. My mom was a musician. She grew up playing guitar and singing around me. She would do gigs. I'd go to her gigs and I started learning guitar and I was terrible, right? I love to sing. And I just looked at my best friend who was teaching me guitar and I said, he's a really great drummer. And I know that I can get there if I put enough effort in it. We have a bunch of musical friends. I'm going to start a country classic rock cover band. And he was looking at me like I was absolutely crazy. I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And I learned how to I learned 4 hours of material, convinced my friends to start this band with me. They were actually really good, way better than me. I hired a vocal coach. And then we ended up playing all on the outskirts of LA. I was in LA at the time. For 4 years, all on the outskirts of LA, and we were doing it. And as I'm up there, I'm like, sometimes I'd step back and be like, wait, I put this on. And that was really the first opportunity that I had. Okay, I had a vision. I went and did it. It was hard. We'd bust our ass. And so when I got presented with Tarl Yarber, my mentor, right in front of me at my cousin's wedding, it was like, this is another moment where you just have to take the opportunity and you need to grab it, and you held it. So actually, I didn't, I played it cool and didn't want to bombard it with a bunch of questions right away. But I was in the back of my mind, I was like, ooh, okay, how do I do this? And by the end of the weekend, I just pretty much told him, hey, remember that thing that you were talking about, how you flip houses? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, I'm going to work for you. When can we meet next week?
Let's
and he just
go.
looked at me like, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. And I got his business card. I reached out and sure enough, we met at Starbucks the next week and he didn't even know what to do. He was like, I realize I'm really busy and I need an assistant. He was taking down 25 deals at a time at that point by himself as an out-of-state operator with his own deals as well. And it was chaos. And then so it just jumped right in. So
how can I get a Serena to come up to me and be like, I'm going to work for you and we're going to make this thing successful. I mean, God, Tarl hit the jackpot too, you know? I mean, you guys absolutely crushed it. That is basically, you know, one thing, I've known you for a while now. I love your outlook on life. And I don't know if I understood where it came from, you know, losing so many people close to you at a young age, but I have always felt as though you have a unique perspective, and I feel as though you've always done very good. Maybe you would say you haven't done very good. It's been a journey, but I feel like you, since I've known you, do a good job of balance of, hey, you know, I got to do this to get it done, but we're only here for a short period of time, so I'm going to live a little bit too. And I think having that perspective is a very good thing, not only to enjoy life. We have to be able to enjoy life, or there's really no point of being here if we're going to be miserable every day. But also, I think having that perspective allows you to take risk, because I flirt the line of like being flippant when it comes to taking risk, especially with investments and doing deals. When I was first starting real estate, and you may have been like this, maybe not. I was very nervous. I was scared to do it. There was a lot of fear, and I think a lot of people feel that because it can be a complex topic.
Totally.
It can cost a lot of money. You got to raise capital. You got to use your own capital. You got to manage contractors. You got to work with property managers, all this stuff. And I was very, very nervous to get into the game. And then I would just go back to that perspective of, you know what, YOLO, almost, like you only live once, right? And you don't want to be that flippant and make bad decisions, but getting to the place of what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I go and take this risk to make my life better? I'm just going to be back at where I am today.
You said it right then. I mean, where fear goes on a spectrum, and I can go back into the fear spectrum real quick. And then I remind myself, I'm like, I've done this so many times. Like, why are you, just because it's new faces or new town or whatever, I'm building my network here in LA, right? So I'm essentially kind of starting over in a bit. I was like, I have so much experience. Right when I get back into it, I'm like, okay, yeah, we're jiving, right? But it can play tricks on us. And so what you said there is like what the worst can happen. I remind myself of all of that. And when I was getting into and starting this new career in real estate, I go, what's the worst that happen? I end up on my parents' couch, right? Yeah. I was like, okay, right? I mean, like if that's the worst that could happen, and not everyone has the privilege of someone to fall back on, but going through that hardship in my life at the beginning, it's like I've already seen like the worst of the worst how life can torture you, right? I was like, if I fail, so what, right? I just keep going. I'll pivot, do something else, and just so having that belief, that faith, and digging into that, but also trusting yourself that you can figure out every step of the way, and it's not this huge mountain you're climbing all at once and stepping over. So
we'll be right back with Serena Norris.
Are you worried about your financial security in these unprecedented times? If you are, the next minute could profoundly impact your financial security. Imagine waking up to find the economy has plunged and your portfolio has plummeted 30 to 45%, while banks are in turmoil, holding your money hostage while waiting for FDIC intervention. Where would you turn? For many, this may sound like fiction, but it's a stark reality for those that have money on the line. Recently, America's awoke to both the NASDAQ and the Dow, plummeting over 1,100 points each and triggering a frenzy of sell-offs. History shows us how a single event can crash the market, like the dot-com bubble of 1999, the subprime mortgage crisis of 2008, and the pandemic of 2020. But today, we're facing multiple bubbles: commercial real estate, stock, bonds, and banks. Combined with the relentless inflation, the threat of global recession, the specters of war, and you have the perfect storm. The consequences could be catastrophic, plunging us into unprecedented crisis. America is sliding in the age of discord, with trust in institutions collapsing and the democratic norms unraveling. The quality of life for Americans has declined. Wealth is concentrated among the rich, while the median American family income stagnates, creating a dangerously top-heavy social pyramid. Moreover, hostile countries like Russia, China, and Iran are working to destroy the U.S. dollar. Gold is a no-matter-what store of wealth that you need. That's why Robert has been such an advocate of gold, and he trusts Allegiance Gold. Allegiance Gold is ready to help you incorporate physical gold as part of your portfolio and protect it against economic uncertainty. Visit protectwithrobert.com today to learn how you can qualify for up to $5,000 in free silver with a qualifying investment. Or give them a call at 844-3-ROBERT. Remember to mention Robert and Kim sent you when you contact Allegiance Gold. Secure your IRA or 401k today with Allegiance Gold. Visit protectwithrobert.com or call 844-3-ROBERT.
Welcome back to the Rich Dad Real Estate Show with myself and Serena Norris. So, Serena, you met your mentor, Tarl, at a wedding 2 days after you moved back home, which is insane. After you'd read Rich Dad Poor Dad, you had made the decision you're going to invest in real estate. He's like, I flip houses. You roll up and you're like, I'm working for you. I want to flip houses. When can we meet? Y'all meet up. Then you start doing the dang thing. So you mentioned you started as his assistant. Can you talk about what that looked like? And then not only like the tactical, what you did, but also like the importance of just, you essentially forced yourself into a role to where you were immersed in the industry you wanted to be in. And how important was that?
Yeah, absolutely. So because I kind of forced myself into it, I was like, I know that I need to show up, right? I don't want to just talk hot air and say I'm going to be here and then all of a sudden go blind on him. That's not the person I am anyways. But he just started throwing all sorts of tasks at me, right? So here's this person who has a ton of experience flipping houses, and he's an operator for out of state and has some systems, but a lot of time when you're a one-man show and you're just going, and a lot is in your head, right? Your only team members are your contractors or realtors, and they're like separate businesses. And so right from the get-go, I was like, this is absolute chaos. We need to organize information, especially with probably about 20 active rehabs going on at that point. So I just started figuring out ways to have centralized information for both of us. I do odd end tasks for him, drive the properties once a week to take a bunch of pictures for them. I started designing stuff. I mean, just wearing all sorts of hats in the business, analyzing deals for him, which I didn't even have my license yet. So I was using Zillow, and Zillow was not what it is today. So, getting really skilled at trying to figure it out. And then really leaning in to start building systems, right? I mean, the first thing we made was a lockbox code sheet, because I was so tired of showing up at properties and the one that I'd written down in my journal wasn't it. And I'm calling him and I wait an hour for him to get me back. I mean, when we're talking about systems and processes, they're really simple. What I'm talking about of like creating systems, like a lockbox code sheet we can both update online and then be able to reference. And then we add the location to it. Like systems process, I feel like people think, oh, like it's so hard. They're thinking corporate and all of this. And like the best systems and the ones that we've kept from day one are the simplest systems and processes, and they work, and that's why people follow them. And so I just started building more and more of those, and then learning as much as I could about construction. So that way I could, take it over and feel confident in doing my own.
Yeah, I think when I first hear the word, to talk about systems real quick, and then I want to dive into it, hear the word systems, like me, I get overwhelmed. Like even to this day, right now, when I say that word, I'm like very overwhelmed. But what I've seen from our team working with you directly, and then just it evolving over time, is it's essentially like exactly what you said. It's what's in your head, put it on paper. And so like it doesn't have to be a 20-page long professional looking ordeal. Like get a Google Doc that may have 5 bullet points, but for whatever that thing is, this is the thing you follow. And then, like you said, people aren't having to call all the time and text. You're having to wait on folks because anything you're doing, especially as you get into more deals like you guys were doing, where you got 20, 30, 40 of them going at a time, you're going to bottleneck if you don't. And I think good investors are able to see that on the front end, and they build that out early. And so then it allows them to scale without running into those roadblocks. And it just makes your life a lot easier. I mean, I bet if we had Tarl on here today, Tarl would be like, bro, my brain was just spinning at all times trying to keep up with everything like the entrepreneur does, right? And life got easier if you just – it's funny. The entrepreneur doesn't want to take time to do what they need to do from a systems perspective. Oh, that's a waste of time. But they waste more time by not doing it. And it would only take them like 2 or 3 days and they could be done, if they really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he would call me to be like, just run through the list. And I'd run through all the properties just to remind him of priorities. And that is when I was like, I can't be that person. Like, you have to look at it. And so luckily for us, where we were such a dynamic, was that he was at that point out there actually, doing the action, and I was in the back organizing the information, and then getting the information. And that's when I learned, okay, you have two people, one is building that system, and then we added a third person, Nate, and then that broke our systems again. And then we're like, okay, now we need to make them better, because when you start adding more people, you see where the systems only worked for the lesser people, and then so refining over time. And that's been the biggest thing of working with clients who are getting starting the flipping game, or they've done dozens of deals, but they're like, I'm at the point where I'm risking burnout, right? I need to start systemizing. I need to start treating this like a business. I want to optimize and scale. I want a 10X, or I just want a better quality of life, like either one. And the biggest thing is just, they don't know how to collect the information and organize it. And it's really that simple, and taking that time. And that's what working on your business is. And flipping houses, it's a lot of information. So setting your systems up, your business up, where you can be proactive and less reactive. We got to a place in 2017 where we had hired a project manager, and one of the realizations we had that he wasn't the right fit was because he was so reactive, and that's how he operated. And really, to be successful in this job, you have to be proactive. And what I mean by that is making sure you're planning the projects up front before you just start moving on. Like, we learned the hard way, where like, okay, we purchased the property. Okay, let's go demo that. Oh, we'll figure out the finishes later on. We're still working on the floor plan, but let's do demo. And then we realized, like, we're just falling over our feet, and we didn't set ourselves up for success. And so then we became, okay, we are not touching this thing. We'll do trash out and stuff that doesn't, replace the roof or whatever, but we're not touching the inside of this thing more than what we absolutely know we're going to do until like 2 weeks into the project. So we can get floor plans, we can get our finishes laid out. So that way, when we're sending that information to the contractors, they're actually giving us the right bids. They're not change ordering us later. I mean, we ended up optimizing our business so much, save money, save time, save headache. And that's why I love systems, because we would have never been able to do the volume that we did, and also be able to live a life, travel without it, right? So
I love that. Yeah, you don't want to... the entrepreneur oftentimes goes into business and then becomes a slave to the business. Like, I would say probably 90% of the time, whatever the data is for however many small businesses fail between 3 to 5 years, that's the same data for people who became slave to their businesses, because they burned out, they ran out of money. And that's a very high number. I think like 90% of business or 70% of business, something crazy. People fell, and it's because of lack of system. Now there's some other things that can go in there, but that is a huge ordeal for a lot of operators. So you mentioned a couple things. If somebody's listening to this and like, okay, I'm new to flipping, or I've done a couple flips and I want to get better. Now, obviously, we could sit here for 10 hours and break down, longer than that, and break down everything. But what are some key components that you guys looked at when it came to the acquisition side of things, the analyzation side of things, and then the management side?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the first thing that comes to mind, I was actually talking with someone the other day about this, and they asked me, what has been your biggest life lesson in real estate and life? And I said, the way in which you think will have such bigger impact on whatever happens. And so as a team, we really started to do a lot of self-development. We started reading a lot of books about, like extreme ownership and how to win friends, influence people, and win, right deal. And a bunch of books like that. And we started going to masterminds, and we started, to really work on ourselves, because in order for your business to grow and to get to a next level, you also need to grow and get to the next level. Real estate is so tied to your personal life. If you're not doing well mentally, physically, in your relationships, and real estate is going to struggle. You're not going to show up in a good shape. And so that was one of the things that we focused on the most. the biggest thing was taking accountability for everyone on the team, both decentralizing the command by able to lead ourselves, right? Take accountability of ourselves. And that helped with our systems, that helped everyone growing together and just becoming a powerhouse, like on our acquisitions, our operations, and our, I guess, leadership, what do you want to say? So I would also say, yeah, take the time to work on your business. Never stop learning. Even though I've done the business that I have, I still feel like I'm learning all the time. And you surround yourself with more ambitious people that are where you want to be. But don't forget that you have to also take the steps to get where you are today to there. I see a lot of times in this business that people, it's good to like act in a mindset of like where you want to be, but you also can't be like, okay, I've done this. Well, I want to be, act like I own $1 million under management and I'm the leader and I'm the visionary. I'm not going to do anything. Like, you have to do the stepping stones to get up there. Or else something's going to crumble, something's going to break, right? You have to grow organically. So, I don't know. What else am I missing? I feel like it starts like within is how you really grow, take like gut checking yourself, checking your ego and going, especially when you're riding the wave, like say things are going great in your business, you're like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Like, I'm too good for that. That's not worth my time, whatever. Like that stuff will end up making it where your ship starts going down, right? Like patch the holes in your hull, right, that are happening because it will catch up with you. The water will fill up in your ship and you will start having a lot of problems and then you won't be able to seize on the opportunities that then come in front of you. So, don't get too high for your bridges and take care of business the right way.
I love that. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with don't act like you're bigger than you are. So many people do that and you're going to get found out. And so I've always lived by just tell the truth. Be brutally honest. If you don't know something, you don't know something. Ask. And then guess what? You're going to know something. And you're going to learn a lot along the way. I mean, even you being around Tarl and, I had my mentors, it's like you hope that they're going to be able to give you everything they need and you're never going to have to learn anything through real life. It just doesn't work like that. I mean, I don't know. The human brain can't figure everything out through education. Can't figure everything out 100% by watching, but we can get pretty darn close and we can stop a lot of the pitfalls. We can accelerate. I mean, how long would it have taken you to get to where you are in real estate if you wouldn't have had Tarl? If you wouldn't have been, not to say that he did all for you, but just putting yourself in that environment, you were, I would guess, able to accelerate your journey to getting to where you wanted to be financially. And that is absolutely huge. And then making yourself valuable along the way. You said, hey, I'm coming to work for you. Made yourself valuable, created those systems, plugged the holes, made the business better, and then you guys worked as a team to say, okay, how can we operate even more efficiently? And that's the only way you can do things like you guys did, where you're taking down 1,000+ deals. It's absolutely insane. How did the Limitless conference come about? How'd you guys find your way into that?
Well, again, just started at stepping stones. I mean, so we back in Seattle during that time, this was about, I think, 2017. 2017. And there were a couple bad figures coming into the game in our real estate community in Seattle. And combined with not a really good meetup. So Tarl decided that, okay, none of the meetups I want to go to, I don't want to go to the RIA, I don't want to go to anything, like I'm going to create the space myself. And so he decided to throw a meetup. 100 people showed up and they loved it. And we were going to be like, no selling from the stage. We're just going to bring in real investors from the community and we're going to teach. Because I told him, I said, if I'm someone who sits in the audience and if I'm not getting like nitty gritty takeaways, like how to, like details, then I just get so frustrated and I leave. Like, I don't want the hot air. I don't want the whatever. Like, I want you to really show me what. And so going to some of the meetups were so frustrating because they're just like, oh, here's like a little bit. Now buy my course, right? And so that ended up growing up to like 200 people a month. And he goes, well, we don't have a conference in the Northwest and we need it. So we're going to create it. So we created an expo And then after a few years, we decided to rebrand it with Ken McElroy as Limitless Financial Freedom Expo, and then expand it to investing in general and entrepreneurship and the achieving financial freedom, that road to success, and not just real estate. And so that's how that came about.
That's amazing. All because you guys started flipping houses, had experience that you could then teach others, and then look what you're doing today. I mean, you guys are impacting thousands of lives, and it is
we had a need.
Really cool.
We had a need. We didn't see it there. And if you need, say like people listening, if there's a need in your community and that you need, there's other investors that probably need the same thing. That's an opportunity. If you if you want to start something yourself, go out, fill that need for yourself. People will follow.
I love it. So you help people who invest in real estate, people who flip, build out systems and optimize what they do. Where can folks get a hold of you if they want to work with you? And here's a quick plug. I didn't even plan this, but our team personally worked with Serena, actually not even on the flipping side, a different part of my business, and it was fantastic. So I wouldn't have had her on the show today if she sucked. So with her not sucking, I'm joking, but she's absolutely fantastic at what she does. And so I just want to give people the opportunity to be able to holler at you should they want help, building out a flipping business.
Yeah, absolutely. Best place to find me is definitely on my Instagram, and go ahead and send me a DM. It's at serena.claire, and I'm sure the link will be in the show notes, hopefully. And then from there, link, you can schedule a call. And I just love helping people at any sort of point in their business with flipping. Just don't make the same mistakes we did, right? And get
well, you can see it. You've done it. It's got to be. It's like riding a bike. It's like you figured it out. You know how the puzzle goes together, and so you're able to help so many people. Serena, thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I always love hanging out with you, and keep crushing it.
Thanks, Jaren.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Rich Dad Real Estate Show, where we talked about the good news and bad news of real estate with Serena Norris. Again, if you have not grabbed my free ebook on how to buy your first investment property, it's down in the show notes. Go click the link, absolutely free. It's going to help you get started in 2025, which is a pivotal year for buying investment real estate. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.